Your young associate has been with you for a number of years. The staff likes them, the patients seem to like them, you like them. And he or she has recently been asking about becoming a partner. So you should allow them to buy in, right? You're listening to the primary reason so many business partnerships fail. Welcome to the Next Level Executive Podcast, a show dedicated to dentists who want to evolve from a clinician who owns a practice into an executive who leads a business. I'm your host, Perrin. If you own a practice that generates over $1 million in revenue and you're wondering what's next, you're in the right place. If you've basically owned your business outright since the beginning, then you have no partnership experience to fall back on. Candidly, I didn't either. And like far too many of you, I didn't seek someone with outside experience to educate me into what I was getting into. Like far too many of you, I relied on the attorney to draft our operating agreement that would consummate the partnership. The law firm we chose was a global M&A firm with a stellar reputation, and we paid heavily for that document. Would it surprise you to know that the only way one of us could exit the partnership was to die? That's right, the legal document they created, and the one we all signed, was akin to joining the mafia. And in spite of the fact that all of us were really smart, highly experienced business professionals, we made several catastrophic errors at the formation stage of our partnership. Those errors were predictable and completely avoidable, yet they were either unknown or not considered by our legal counsel. 4 years later, I basically put another attorney's kid through college to get me out of that agreement. If the legal operating agreement was bad, the dynamics around the business partnership were worse. You think the decision to sell your business is the most consequential of your career. I'm telling you it isn't. Bringing an associate into partnership absolutely is. And the reason I know that, and the reason I believe that so strongly, is because I've lived through the repercussions of getting it wrong. A lot of the people in my executive group are hiring associates right now. Probably quite a number of you in this audience are as well. There seems to be a lot of candidates onto the market right now due to the churn and the dysfunctionality of DSOs. In last week's episode, I talked about the timing of the market relative to the slowdown in M&A activity. That same slowdown extends to hiring activity for associates. And like many of you, many of the members of my executive group are recruiting with a partnership concept in mind, a subject we talk about often in a group setting and candidly in a lot of my one-on-ones with them. In fact, partnership and ownership is the theme of the upcoming quarter of the program. So if you're thinking along the same lines as those in my group, but don't know the questions to ask or how to prepare, why haven't you joined us yet, honestly? My podcast is fine. You get a lot of detail out of this, hopefully, but you can't build a partnership off of a podcast. It is time for you to get serious about it. Getting serious begins with you, not your associate. If you've owned your business outright since the beginning, then you've never had to have a discussion about a decision to make. You don't have a meeting with yourself. You've always just made the decision. You've always just done it. It either felt right or you knew it was the right decision. You didn't have to run it by anybody. You didn't have to seek outside counsel. It was a meeting of one, and the decision was final. Can you explain the decision-making process to someone? More than likely you can't. And furthermore, are all decisions created equally? I would say no, they're absolutely not. You lead and operate the business because you know how to. You've experienced all of it. Your associates have experienced none of it. Don't expect them to buy in and then magically end up with the same level of knowledge and experience that it took you decades to assemble. Your problem is that you don't know how much you actually know. Let me state that again. Your problem is that you don't know how much you actually know. You've never started documenting any of it, have you? And if you haven't even documented it, how are you going to teach it to them? And if you're not going to teach it to them, how are they going to learn it? When I hear a senior partner, a senior owner, a veteran practice owner, tell me that their junior partner is an idiot, I want to ask, well, were they that way before you made them a partner? And if they were, then that's a you problem. And if they weren't, then how much have you invested in their business acumen? How much have you invested in their leadership development to make them into the partner you want them to be? Let me restate that because this is critically important for you to take away. How much have you invested in their business acumen or their leadership development to make them into the partner you want them to be? You need to invest every bit as much in their professional development as a potential business partner as you would in them as a clinical associate. The problem is you don't think of it that way. And you wonder why they come into partnership and now they're an owner in the business and they seem to have magically become an idiot overnight, and their biggest concern is how they're going to get paid. Founder owners often get point blanked by their associates who want to become a partner because they don't bring it up to them first. It's almost like if I don't bring up the subject, then it'll just go away or it'll never be a problem. And that's a bad assumption for you to make. It's never a problem until they come to you and say, I've found another practice to buy since I can't become a partner here, so I'm leaving in 60 days. What? Where did that come up? I didn't see that. We'd never have a discussion. I had no idea. That's not the time to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Or maybe a better analogy is, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube at that point. If you don't invest in building their business acumen and their leadership skill set, then they're going to be a drag on your ability to continue to grow the business. You're going to allow them to buy in at some paltry investment level, and they're immediately going to become dead weight. I can't impress upon you enough that it's your responsibility to set expectations for what partnership means in your business, and then to develop them accordingly. If you can develop them into taking some of the administrative and leadership workload off your shoulders, then now you have a partner who will improve the value of your business. They will literally make your life easier. I've seen far too many former consulting clients and a few who've been in the executive program simply approach partnership candidacy from a standpoint in time. Well, he had been with me for 3 years, so I made him a partner. And the next thing I usually hear is something like the following. And now he's coasting and his collection levels are down. Or, and now she's taking more time off than she ever did as an associate. Or how about this one? And he's still making a ton of money doing dentistry 4 days a week, while I shoulder all the administrative burden, all of the HR nightmares, and all of the leadership responsibilities for the business every bit as much as I did before they bought in. Any of that sound familiar to any of you? I bet it does. Far too many of you acquiesce to the demands of your young associates. You play defense, and to a degree, you capitulate. You allow them to become a partner because you never took the lead and you never defined what it means to be a partner. It's your business. Play offense. Lead from out front. You need to own this conversation. You need to be proactive about it. You need to bring it up. And you need to be the one to lead the discussion. The reason I say this is the biggest decision you'll ever make is because so many get it wrong, and the downside is so very bad. When done correctly, a successful partnership can be glorious. It can be complementary. It can be synergistic. It can truly be accretive to earnings, and it can lighten the load on you. I would want that opportunity. That opportunity, not that obligation, for each and every one of you. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to talk a lot about my experience in helping clients in developing partnership models and some of my experience in being a partner and the successes and failures I've seen and experienced along the way, and there have been numerous of both. For those of you taking notes and really dialed in right now, here's a call to action for you. If you've got a friend or a colleague who's talked about bringing an associate into partnership with them, I urge you to share this episode with them in advance of what I'm going to share in the coming weeks. Much like growth strategy, partnership failures are often predictable and usually avoidable, at least from a structural standpoint. And if you see the need to dive deeper into the dynamics of preparing yourself and preparing your business for a potential partner, then I'd strongly encourage you to consider joining us in the upcoming quarter of the executive program, where I'll focus the better part of 8 to 10 sessions on everything related to partnership and ownership. My advice is to prepare at least a year in advance, and that starts with you as the founder. So here are a couple of after-action items for you. A few questions to consider or maybe points to ponder. 1, can you actually list all of the administrative and leadership functions you perform in the business? These are all the non-clinical functions. Can you actually list the administrative and leadership functions you perform in the business? And which of them could an associate take on after becoming a partner? Number 2, think back over the last 2 to 5 years, maybe as much as 10 years, and consider some of the major issues you had to deal with or opportunities you had to confront. What were they? What was the context behind them? And what were the variables in your decision-making process? Can you teach any of that to your young associates who are potential partners? Can you start to educate them in their leadership development, in their professional development, in what it's like to actually own and operate and govern a business? Can you convey any of that to them before they actually buy in or earn into the business? Number 3, what are the most compelling opportunities you see in the coming 2 to 3 years for your business? And could a potential partner actually play a role in any of them? What are the most compelling opportunities you see over the horizon for the business? And, could a potential partner actually help with any of that? Number 4, what are your strengths as a leader and what are your weaknesses? self-awareness is not overrated in a leadership capacity. So what are your strengths as a leader and what are your weaknesses? And how do those weaknesses that you possess impact the business? Does your potential partner have strengths that you don't? Can they make up for any weaknesses that you may have? How much are they going to be a complement to you from a strengths and weaknesses standpoint? Critically important. So look, I know that probably 90% plus of the audience is going to delete this episode when you're done. I get it. For that 10% that go back and replay those questions I just shared, my advice is to allow yourself 10 to 20 minutes to think freely and creatively on possibly each one of them. Take 30 minutes to an hour and ponder those 4 questions. If you do that, you're going to start to see a development plan forming in front of your very eyes, a development plan that you can compartmentalize and start to apply to your young associates. It's coaching and developing every bit as much as I do with you on this podcast to the best of my ability, and every bit as much as I do with the people in our executive program on a weekly basis. You're no different, and you have to take that first step. The reason that this is the biggest decision you'll ever make is simply because you're not truly prepared to make it, no more than I was a decade ago. The likelihood is that a large percentage of you will bring on an associate partner in the coming years, and a large percentage of you will recreate the same predictable failures of those who came before you. I hope your life lesson doesn't cost you as much as mine did for me. On next week's episode, I'm going to share the other truth to this equation. While the vast majority of associates say or even demand to become a partner, there are some hardcore brass tack reasons why they're nowhere close to being ready to become an owner in a practice. And once again, that's your problem, not theirs. If you're wondering what's next for you and your business, the answer's waiting for you on the Next Level Executive Podcast.
This podcast was edited by Resonate Recordings.